This
Everyone can
conference will now be recorded.
right. Okay. So good morning, everyone. My name is Raj. Actually, currently I'm working as a solution architect in one of the leading FMCGs in Australia. Actually, I live in and I'm settled in Australia since last 7 years. Uh, Started my career back in 2007. Worked as a production planning consultant um, for say 2.5, 3 years, and then moved to APO. So since 2010, I'm full-time APO consultant. I started with SNP DP and then moved to PPDS GATP. So it's been almost 4 5 years now in extensively in PPDS and GATP. And that's a short description of my experience. So in today's session, I'll actually talk about the content of the course. So what will be covered in S4 HANA, and what are the things that we'll be covering in ECC and APO. So the majority of them will be in S4 HANA. And coming to my experience in teaching, so the first batch that I conducted was in 2011 when I went to Sriram back in 2010 to learn SNP. When I moved to APO, and then I learned PPDS, and that's when I started teaching from 2011, and it's maybe around 35 batches in PPDS, around 20 plus in SNP, DP, many batches. It's been almost 8+ years of teaching experience that I have. Right. So let me share my screen to start with. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, Raj, I can see your screen.
Yes, Raj.
So actually what we'll do, let's go through all the contents, and then we'll go to, I'll just show you the difference, what's in S4 HANA, how does it look in APO, and what is that we need to really work and know about. So in my sessions, I think only the session, the introductory session, which will be on Saturday next week, I'll spend 35 minutes or maybe 45 minutes explaining or giving an overview of PPDS. Yeah, other than that session, till we finish the course, there'll not be any PPTs. Yeah, it will be hands-on in the system, building everything right from scratch. Okay, so and I still have around, I think, 12 or 14 different PowerPoint presentations for every functions in PPDS, which I'll be sharing with you all while we learn PPDS. Okay, so to start with, see, you can see a column here, column D. Please, everybody, mute yourself. Thank you. So here I've mentioned in which system we'll be learning, um, and I've also mentioned ECC APU. I'll tell you why. Okay, so when we start the initial PowerPoint presentation that I mentioned, we'll go through and understand what exactly PPDS delivers and why do we need PPT. So it talks about PPDS functions and usabilities and what are the master data required. And then in the first session itself, we'll be creating all the required master data. If you talk about APO as a whole, ECC is the backbone, right? For all the master data, we have to rely on ECC system. We sift it, and then we create only APO specific master data in APO. Whereas in S4 HANA, it's one system. You don't really have to, um, you know, it's one system. You don't have to really get into SIF part, but you still need SIF in S4 because of the naming. You call work center in ECC, you call resources in S4 planning part, and then you call material, there you call product, here you call BOM and routing, the other side we call PDS. So for that reason, you still have to SIF. Okay, within the system, just for that conversion, because APO is fully made up of function modules which recognize only products. It doesn't recognize materials. So for APO engine to actually read the data, it needs to be in its own format. If you tell Material Master, it doesn't understand. It cannot plan. It can only plan for products and PDSs. So for that reason, we still have to sift. But for transaction data, that is your orders, stocks, for everything, you don't need SIF. Okay, and that's the whole purpose of introducing S/4HANA, everything in one box, because we always have consistent transaction data. And the biggest challenge that we have now, be it GATP or PPDS, you post some stocks in ECC, immediately it's not there in APO, though it is supposed to be there, it won't be there for various reasons. Okay, so that's when you end up planning more or planning less because of data integration, mainly transaction data. So that's eliminated in S4. So the moment you do any transaction, immediately you see in the, if you go to product view, you still see that you see in MD04, you see everything there. So those things are aligned. So from our side as consultants, we have to ensure that we set up a system, an integration system, that is SIF integration models, to make sure the master data is consistent between, you know, ECC and S4 planning part within the same box. So like I said, the first session will be creating all the master data, and we will not actually create anything in ECC. But why I've mentioned ECC and APO is because I'll also show in the session how does it look in APO. So this session is for two categories of people: those who are actually looking for PPDS, and for those who are looking extensively in S4. So what I want to convey is both are same, when whatever the difference is in S4, and that will also be covered. It's like for those, it's like for anyone who's a DP S&P consultant. So this course for them would be a learning of PPDS as well. And for those who are working in production planning module, for them it's an extension. Okay, it's as good as you can. You can start working as a PPDS consultant also. You don't have to call yourself S4. Yeah, so it takes few more years. It takes another 6 to 7 years before everything is before the gates are closed and moved to S4 completely, right? A lot of large clients are still in PPDS, and they will be in PPDS. I'll talk about why they'll still be in PPDS going forward for a few more years. Okay, and then we create a integration model. We'll sift everything in to APO. Let me do some correction. Yeah, this needs to be changed. This is S4 master data and APO, because when we sift everything, we also see in S4, and also we'll get into APO and see how a product looks in APO, how a product looks in S4 also we'll see. And SIF, and this is extensively or exclusively, I would rather call, for ECC and APO only, because SIF error handling, queue monitoring methods, housekeeping and all, normally we do for uh, transaction data, right? Uh, so this ECC and APO system, two separate systems, you always have problems in SIF. You always have queues piled up. You have inbound queues, outbound queues for all the transaction data, and there will be some for master data also, but they are very less. You know how many times you change a material and how many times you change bomb and recipe. It's very rare. But what happens on a regular basis is transaction data. So for someone who is working in PPDS, or someone who is working as a support consultant in PPDS, those guys needs to be very strong in queue handling, SIF error handling. So in I think 30 to 45 minute session where we'll run through all the transactions in SIF, there'll not be anything beyond that. Yeah. So if you see, I've listed all the transactions, housekeeping programs, and whatever you should know in SIF, it will be covered in this session. Yeah, and then by this time, S4 HANA system will have all the required master data set up in the system, right? So we can go and actually validate whether all the materials and work center, BOM, recipe, everything is transferred to S4. Yeah, and then we start by creating a version. There's some version management in S4, in APO, in SNP, everywhere. So we'll talk more about version management when we get there. So we'll start our master data session with version management, and I'll explain why you need simulation version, why you need active version, and what is the relevance and everything. We'll talk during that session, and then we'll get into the details of product master. See here in the first session itself, we would have created all the master data, and in this session itself, we would have learned many things. It'll not be simply creating material, hitting enter and enter. We'll be discussing everything in detail. In a material, what are the fields relevant for PPDS? Those will be discussed in detail. Work center formulas, how those formulas are derived in the backend. Okay, why do we need formulas? What is capacity requirement formulas? What is scheduling formulas? In BOM, what are the relevant fields for planning? Yeah. In routing, recipe, we create a setup matrix also in this session. I have not mentioned yet. So what is the purpose of setup matrix? We discuss in detail about everything. And here in product master, I need 2 hours only for product master. There's so many fields relevant to PPDS. Yeah, in product master. Some of them comes from ECC, and there are lot many fields within product master that is relevant for PPDS for planning and scheduling. So we start with product master, we start with location master, time stream calendars, because here it's not just factory calendars. Yeah, we also use time stream calendars in PPDS. Time stream calendars is nothing but you have a factory calendar of say 6 days a week, but say for example there are some resources which you don't want to run on specific products. You don't want to run few products on those resources every day. You want to do it only on, you want to produce only on Tuesday and on Thursday from 12 to 5 o'clock, Tuesday full day kind of. But your resource is open because resource is at a factory calendar level, isn't it? It's at a factory level, so that is open for 7 days. But some products cannot be produced all the 7 days, only one day in a week or 1.5 days or whatever. So then this time stream calendar will come into picture. So we'll create a time stream calendar for our purpose, and we'll see how to create. So in this session, it's only creation and learning of master data, and we'll start using that when we get to planning part. Okay, so we'll create a resource. The resource would be anyway shift from ECC. And resource, there are many types of resources. You have single activity, multi-activity, single mixed, multi-mixed, transportation resource, handling unit, many types of resource. We'll see all those. And the biggest challenge there is shift definitions and shift sequences and all. It looks complicated. Uh, Maybe initially it looks complicated, but once you get into it, once you start building your own sequences, it will look very easy. Yeah, so in we normally don't use the shifts that you maintain in the work center. PPDS does not understand the shift that you maintain in work center level. Even though there is a provision, you can always call your resource master an external capacity. Then it will read your shifts that you maintained in work center. But we don't do, normally we don't do that, right? So we have to, because shifts are very big in APO. It gives you a lot of planning features. Um, you would rather use the shifts in APO than calling it an external capacity and use something which is outdated. I would rather call. If you look at the functions that you have in APO Resource Master, definitely no one uses the shifts in Work Center when they have a PPDS system or an S4 HANA system. Okay, so on that we'll create our own shifts, break patterns, shift sequences, capacity variance, and we introduce shift factors into it, and we'll see all those. And also we'll create some quotas. Quotas is nothing but those who are from SNP, you guys know how quota arrangement is used for a source of supply. Here exactly, you have 3 machines which can perform the same activity. Yeah. But in PPDS planning, when we plan it, it picks one of the resource. Normally, the first production version, it picks and plans everything there. And when you're doing scheduling, you can always switch the orders from one machine to the others by dragging and dropping functionality. Or when you use optimization, optimization will do that. Or there is another function called resource classification where we can do that. But if you want uh, splitting off the load when PPDS plans, say for example, I want 30% on resource A, 30% on resource B, and 40% on resource C. But think that you have a very low, just 100 cases. You really don't want to split. So these are the things that we learn. Quota arrangement, when you have an order quantity above 1,000 cases a week, you need to split it. If my total order quantity is less than 300 cases a week, forget quota, just focus on the first resource. So these are the things you can do in quota arrangement. In this session, we'll only create a quota. That's it. So when we get to quota arrangement session, we will simulate all this. Yeah, this we just spoke about this. So we'll be creating break patterns and all. And validation of PDS. So PDS is made up of BOM and recipe or BOM and routing. So and how it comes through a production version. So if you don't have a production version, if you simply maintain BOM and routing, you cannot shift it to APO. So you must have a production version linking the PDS, linking the routing or recipe and BOM in the production version. Yeah, and that needs to be shift, which comes to APO as a PDS. Okay, and then alerts. PPDS does what do you call dynamic alerts? Yeah, when I said dynamic, in SNP DP you have database alerts also. In SNP you have dynamic as well, but mainly we use SNP as a database, correct? Because we do medium to long term horizon. Whereas PPDS is dynamic. When I say dynamic, it's on the spot. You do planning immediately, it gives an alert. You schedule an order on the spot, it gives. So they're dynamic. On the spot, you can see wherever you are, whether you are in your planning screen, you're in scheduling dashboard, or you're in product view, or you're in PPT, product planning table. So everywhere you access planning and scheduling, you can instantly see the alerts. So for that, you need to create an alert profile. You need to configure alerts. You need to tell what is that alert that you want. You have information, you have warning, you have error. So you need to define the percentage or the thresholds we call. Uh, so based on the threshold that you have defined, system immediately generates the alert so that we can go and see immediately. Okay, at this point of time, you will be thorough in master data, and you are um, ready with configuration. This is something that I didn't talk about. Configuration. So before we actually start planning, we have to configure the system, right? So it all starts with alerts. Once you have an alert profile created, then we get into PPDS specific configuration. Everything that is required for planning will be configured. Our own set of data will be there. Okay, we don't use any standard objects. We'll create our own configurations, and once you have configurations ready in the system, master data ready in the system, we'll get into planning part. In planning, you have single level planning, multi-level planning. There's something called planning procedure in APO. So there are 5. One is extensively for GATP, that is multi-level ATP check. Other than that, we have 4 types: manual with check, manual without check, cover dependent requirements immediately, planning and planning. So these are the 4 different procedures in planning. Yeah, and for all these 4 procedures, there could be single level planning, there will be multi-level planning also. Okay, so we use MRP1 and MRP2. These are the 2 heuristics that will be working for planning, and within this is for these are MRP heuristics, but while MRP uses its own heuristic, you can always link other heuristics to it. Say lot sizes. There is a heuristic called standard lot size. There is a heuristic called lot size with shelf life. So there are many other heuristics which you can link to MRP1 and MRP2 while planning. Yeah, and we'll not actually at this stage, we'll only validate the results in DS board, because DS board is a very big functionality in PPDS altogether. Right. So once we are thorough with planning, we need to learn how to convert orders. So those who are in SNP, yeah, uh, they've always asked me. I think I recently added this. So in this session, we'll create some SNP orders. We'll convert those SNP orders to PPDS orders. Okay. So whenever you use SNP, you don't really go and do the straightforward planning in PPDS. We always convert, because SNP we would have given some logic. Based on those logics, SNP would have given you planned orders. And in PPDS, we go and run planning directly. It will start looking from PPDS perspective. Okay, the constraints that you had given in SNP will be forgotten. So that's why we always convert SNP to PPDS. When we use S4 HANA, you cannot do it at all. S4 HANA is independent. Okay, because it doesn't understand SNP order. So is S4, when I run planning, I will this SNP is not there at all. It will be straightforward planning in S4. Okay. I know you guys will be having questions, so please park it until I finish the contents, and then we can keep on discussing. I'll answer all your questions. Okay, interactive planning. So PPDS planning we always do at a mass, at a plant level, a group of products, at a semi-finished goods, at a finished goods level. Yeah, but once you have planned, and planners go and review the planning results, and interactively they'll change based on many things. For few products or one or two products, they want to change the lot size and see how it goes. Within PPDS, we call it strategy profile. In strategy profile, there are so many functions. They keep changing the functions and see the output. Okay, so in interactively, you can do various things in PPDS. When I say PPDS, it's not PPDS system only. It's S4 HANA also. It's both are same. I'll show the system very soon. So we will see what all planner does after planning. It's not that you tell planner, okay, run single level planning, multi-level planning. They'll not agree. They will actually try to change the results. And to change the results, PPDS, they've given many options also. So you cannot avoid or escape. They will catch hold of you. But so for that reason, you need to know everything. What are the other things that you can do other than straightforward planning? Yeah, it's called interactive planning. So like I've mentioned here, we use variable heuristics. When I say variable heuristics, means more than one heuristic. See here, it uses one heuristic before giving the results. But when you go to interactive planning, it's called variable heuristics, where you can call heuristics. You can call your own heuristics and start seeing the outputs differently. There is first in, first out. You avoid surplus. Lot sizing procedures, running planning in simulation versions, and introducing planning calendar. So I just spoke about that when I said you can plan your products on any given day. So for those, you can use planning calendar. So these, we would have created a planning calendar earlier, but now we'll call those planning calendar and start planning. Okay, quota arrangement, we just spoke. Yeah, so we created a quota. In this session, we'll be running planning on quota. Okay, so this is scheduling heuristic. This is when we get into PPDS, that is detailed scheduling planning board. Okay, so in this session, we it's a whole session, maybe on this day I may extend the session beyond 2 hours, because it's not straightforward. It's difficult, and at the same time, so somewhere in the bottom, I think I mentioned. So what we normally do is, we in this session we configure the planning board. We define colors, because planners, um, they don't just use any color, the standard color which S4 or PPDS gives. So they would have had a chart. I think you guys would have spoken to production planners. You always see them a big chart, sitting with a big chart all the time, and they're looking at the colors. They know what they're producing. They don't remember the product name, yeah, and product description. They don't care. They just want to identify the product looking at the colors only. So in this session, we'll configure colors for a given product. We want that to be in brown color in the graphical dashboard. So how do we configure? Because colors is totally different. That needs to be linked to a material, and that material needs to have that color that you want, and that needs to be displayed in the DS board. Yeah, I'm not sure a lot of people know about it. It's a little bit complex. So we will start with that. We'll learn that functionality and then get into scheduling part. So we would have had anyway planned orders, right? We would have done variable planning, straightforward planning, interactive planning. So we'll have a lot of orders in the system. So in DS board, we will see what we can do. How do we change things in DS board? Every icon in the DS board, every functionality in the DS board, I'll be covering everything. Yeah, most of it, any icon which is active, we'll see the output of those in PPDS. Yeah, so this is an extensive session, and this is not the only time that we come here. This is we start coming to scheduling board to learn, and after that, when we move on, that is the next one. See, creation of setup groups, keys, matrix. This is another functionality in PPDS commonly used in S4 and in PPDS, very commonly used. Most of the organization uses this. It's only because I've just given an example here. Yeah, say 5 products and 1 common. So this is what I show. What happens is on a machine you have multiple products. To give an example, say you have a blending machine or a filling machine, I would rather say. Filling of what? Filling, it could be filling of milk, and milk comes in varieties. You have a raw milk, you have flavored milk. In flavored milk, you have chocolate, strawberry, pista. You have more than, though it's milk, but it has many variants. Now, for all these flavors, you use only one filling tank, right? So how do you sequence it? You have a changeover time. Say, for example, I want to change from raw milk to a chocolate flavored milk. The cleaning time is very less, right? You don't really have to do anything because it's fresh raw milk you've filled, and then now you want to start with chocolate, where the content is once again fresh milk or raw milk and some ingredients. Okay, see, if you think about the other way around, from the raw milk to chocolate flavored milk, the setup time could be say 20 minutes or 30 minutes. But after chocolate, you want to fill raw milk, you need a lot of time. Okay, there are a lot of cleaning processes on. If at all you produce chocolate flavored milk, then to produce anything else, say for example raw milk or a vanilla flavored milk, there is a lot of cleaning activities, setup time. So setup time in any organization is a non-value added activity. No one pays you for cleaning, right? So you always want to minimize setup time. So how do you minimize? By using setup matrix. You sequence it. I'll produce raw milk first, second I'll produce vanilla. So slowly you get darker and darker and darker so that you have a reduced setup time. This is what we do. We create a key, we create a matrix, we create a setup group, and then we plan and we schedule. This is manual based on how planner thinks. Planner thinks this is the best way based on his experience. Then we introduce PPDS optimization. Optimization not only thinks of the best way, it will think about the most cost effective way because we put some cost to it. I'll have a matrix. In the matrix, I'll put some cost. The cost of changing from chocolate to raw milk, this is the cost. Or from vanilla to uh, raw milk, this is the cost. Or vanilla to, all these combinations will be there in the matrix. So we would have put a cost to it. So PPT's optimization will ask you whether you want to give weightage for time or cost or both. So when you say both, it will give you a very feasible, a production plan, fully finitely scheduled plan, considering your cost also. Okay, so this is what we do. So with the results that I get here, with the same results, I'll configure an optimization. I'll create an optimization profile and we'll run optimization to see the output. Okay, now there is a functionality in PPDS where the moment customer service creates a sales order, immediately in the background, in few seconds, the system has to go to the planning and scheduling. It needs to access even S4. This doesn't work. So let me tell you now. S4 doesn't work because this needs to have a good support of GATP. Even though in S4 we have ATP parameters, this functionality is not supported as of now in the version that we have, 18 whatever we have. So the expectation is, think that you don't have APO. In in SD, what we do, we create a sales order. So what it does, it goes and looks at the stock on hand. When I say stock on hand, not physical stock, it look at physical stock, it will look what is coming. It could be STOs, POs, production orders, firm planned orders, all put together. It'll say, okay, this is what you're getting tomorrow or day after or whenever. So based on that, you get confirmation. But the objects which are relevant for PPD, say planned orders, firm planned orders, production orders. Yeah. So based on the dates, it confirms. But what if there is a shortage? Think that my sales order quantity, the request from the customer, say it's for 500 cases. Considering all that I have at the moment is 300 cases, I don't have 200 cases at all. So in real case, what happens, the schedule lines will be confirmed only for 300, though the quantity is 500. So when you integrate PPDS with this, what PPDS does, instantly you hit enter, you enter 500 cases and hit enter. In the background, it goes to APO, it does planning, it does scheduling, finite scheduling, comes back and confirms the date. It says shortage is 200. This is when we can produce. It will go and look for a available capacity and how early it can give. That date comes back and your sales orders will be confirmed based on realistic, not simply telling customer that I'll give you tomorrow and you don't have capacity. Yes, so that's why it's called capable to promise, CTP functionality in PPDS. It's called capable to promise. So you are capable because you have capacity and you promise your customer based on available capacity. Okay, so another example, so that is CTP. In relation with that, now I told you it looks at the capacity and then it will confirm, that is fine. But where it actually, see, you have priority customers. You can't simply consume capacity when you have this functionality. You have not just one customer, you have priority 5 to 10 priority customers. Okay, so you don't want someone to come and consume that capacity. I think those guys, in this, if you guys have worked in GATP, there is a functionality called product allocation where we reserve products for customers. Yeah. So those products cannot be consumed by any other customer. It's dedicatedly reserved for them. Exactly like that, we reserve capacity for customers. Think that you have customer A, B, C, D, E. You can reserve 3 hours per day for customer A, 3 hours per day for customer B. What happens when you create an order for, if your sold to party is that particular customer, and the orders will fall only there. There is, and nobody else can consume that capacity. If the B customer comes and A customer has not come at all, if your B customer comes, it will not consume the capacity on Monday, because on Monday capacity you've allotted or you allocated to customers. So that is called capacity reservation. So for capacity reservation to work, the CTP is mandatory. You cannot tell your client, okay, let's implement capacity reservation, forget about CTP. No. The prerequisite for capacity reservation to work is implementing CTP. You don't need to learn GATP for that. Only those which PPDS touch, functions, that is associated with GATP is good enough. You don't need one more GATP consultant to implement this. Okay, so that we learn, and then block planning. Complex S4 HANA, no, you cannot have block planning. When I say you cannot have, block planning is an additional license. Okay, even in the regular APO system, block planning does not work. You have a license system, no. You need to purchase IS, industry specific, IS oil, IS mill. So these are the industries who uses block planning. In dairy industry, I have implemented block planning without license. So how? By using PPM. So it's a very good opportunity to learn how PPM works. PDS, the difference between PDS and PPM is PDS cannot be edited, PPM can be edited. So that is the reason. What if you have a license, you can straight away start using block planning in S4 or in APO box. When I say license, I'm talking about IS. So now what we do in this session is we learn block planning using PPM, production process model. So what is block planning? So you think that you want to sequence it. We spoke about sequencing, setup matrix, right? So setup matrix is used for a different purpose. Block planning is used for block planning is you'll say week one, I'll produce strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate. Week two, I produce only chocolate. Week three, I produce only vanilla flavor. Week three, chocolate and vanilla. So all these combinations when you give, yeah, different weeks, different product should be planned and scheduled in that period. That is called block. You are creating block and you're linking what needs to be produced, which product category needs to produce. And in setup matrix, you cannot do. Setup matrix, it plans for everything. And then it sequences based on setup matrix. Here, it's got nothing to do with setup matrix. Based on blocks, PPDS will do planning and scheduling. See, I'll think, maybe another 6 months down the line, 1 year down the line, S/4HANA will also have this functionality. If I go and see now, it still has, but the problem is you cannot use it, even though I told you can use it only if your client purchases the additional IS functionality. So it's good to learn. Like I said, this is very complex. Say, for example, I'll say I want to produce vanilla flavor, chocolate flavor, raw milk in week 35. Okay, all the requirements are taken and planned in week 30 infinitely. See, PPT, the first step is infinite planning. Infinitely, it's planned all the products there. But when you go and see, it would have planned middle of the week, beginning of the week, or wherever based on the setting. You need to schedule, right? You can schedule those three products in the same week finitely later and think that it's gone beyond. Say, for example, you have 5 working days in a week and the time taken for all these orders maybe 7 days. It needs 5 days is not enough. It may need 6 or 7 days. So you also have a functionality called extending the block. You can always extend and schedule once again. Okay, and then if you want chocolate to be planned first, vanilla to be planned, that is also possible within the blocks. Okay, this is like I said, I need entire session for this 2+ hours for block planning. Resource classification also. I'll tell you why this is not supported is because it's classification. See, what is block planning? It's a classification, block class. Anything related to class, your standard is for a standard APO, not IDIS. Your standard regular APO system also doesn't support. You need to buy something. Maybe batch class, material class, yes. But when you talk about variant configuration, CDP class and all, your standard APO system does not support. Exactly like that, S/4HANA also doesn't support. So why we need resource classification is because I gave an example of quota, right? So where you say you have 3 resources and you need 30%, some proportions you give, based on that it plans. So resource classification, if you have 3 resources or 3 work centers. But in quota, you need to have 3 production versions, whereas here you have only 1 production version. That's it. It's simplifying your master data. Say, for example, I have 100 products, and for 100 products, I need 100 production versions. But if I have 3 machines which can produce the same 100 products, you have to define 1,500 production versions, right? 3 production versions per product. You have 100. Just think about the number of production versions that you have to create. In spite of creating all this, you still have to create quota. It's a never-ending process, and your client will say, no, I don't want. So that's where you have classification, where you have 1 production version only, and then the other 2 work centers will be classified. In the sense, whenever you plan, okay, we have something called mode in APO. Using the functionality of mode, you can either, while planning itself, you can see to it, okay, go and see my first resource, which is assigned to the production version. If it's full, move to the second. If second is fully loaded, move to the third. Okay, we can do. Or you can say plan everything on the first one, Second and third, I'll decide. So in the DS board, you can just drag and drop orders on other machines, which is very easy. Correct. You just select the orders, just drag and drop to the other work center, which is so easy to do. Other than having three production versions and you don't know what's going on. Resource classification. So this also I'll be using PPM. So whichever APO doesn't support, whichever S4HANA doesn't support, we use PPM and learn all this functionality. Yeah. So other than these two, this anyway, we cannot even explore in S4HANA. I'm 100% sure we cannot do it. And what is this? Product in resource chart needs to be added. Okay, colors. We spoke about colors, right? In the PPDS dashboard. So that is also possible in S4HANA. So we can configure colors, and we'll see to it that we see those colors in the dashboard. And just added last batch product interchangeability. Yeah, product interchangeability. I think PP consultants, you have a discontinuation of a product A, and you have a follow-up product of B, and you have validity dates. You can define whether the old product can be consumed, the stock of old product can be consumed till certain date or not. So exactly like that, we have in S4 something called product interchangeability functionality. Okay, I just what is missing is subcontracting. Not sure why it is missing here. Subcontracting. Yeah. So in the previous batch, I showed subcontracting in PPDS system, not S4. In this batch, I'm planning to do that in S4. Subcontracting, we need to have a purchase info record. We need to have a production version. We need to have a PDS for your vendor. Subcontracting is these days, why I introduced in the last batch is because of by demand. Before we had an option, we had in APO, we had SNP, we had PPDS both. So if you do SNP, which is long term, you don't really need to do subcontracting in PPDS. Now that things have moved to S4, it needs to be in S4 itself. Yeah. So subcontracting, every place and everywhere you go, there will be subcontracting, and they expect PPDS or SNP to tell them what exactly needs to be sent to the vendor and what actually comes back from the vendor. So subcontracting is one thing that we need to learn in S4, and the product interchangeability and reports. If you learn all this, I'm telling you, there's nothing else, nothing more to learn in PPDS. When I say there's something called campaign planning, which I don't cover. Why? Because we cover block planning. So campaign planning used to be there. It's old now. It's, I would say, maybe some clients maybe still using, but nowadays everybody are into block planning. So it's outdated. Other than that, pretty much everything else will be covered in this session. So this will go on, not depends, like 25 hours, 30 hours. The last batch, which we finished, it took me almost 29, 30 hours to finish all this. And when I say 29, 30 hours, it's got nothing to do with practicing. Yeah, if you go to SAP, the PPDS SCM 250, I'll be anyway giving you that study material also. So where the total duration of 5 days consists of a half day of practice time. In half day, what do you teach? Because I have taught in SAP also. It's a big disappointment that you hardly cover anything, and you always ask them to practice, and you finish 5 days. Course is over. So here we don't do that. It's hands-on. This 29, 30 hours is my time only, not your time. So you'll be practicing during the week and come back to me with questions on a Saturday. Yeah. So anybody, please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Hi Raj, this is Rajesh here.
Hi, Rajesh.
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One is, are we going through the Fury apps as well?
No. We don't have those functions in the system that we have.
Okay, fine. Okay.
No.
And second thing is, I was told, I mean, our company may get a couple of VC projects, variant configuration projects. So it may touch PP, and I'm not sure about the PPDS. So uh, are we touching in particular about the VC integration with the PPDS? Because okay, let me tell you my background. I'm a PP guy. I've been working in SAP last 16 years. I worked with SAP close to 10 years. So last 2 years, two and a half years, I'm working on S4 HANA, both PP and EWM.
Very good.
So yeah, so I've been working on PP, WM, and EWM, done implementations around the world. So this is my brief background.
Okay.
So VC part, I mean, how do we, uh,
See, VC is a functionality in production planning. It's not a
right?
functionality in PPDS. Okay, so what happens
Okay.
is as soon as you create a variant configuration that your class, I think class 200 or something, where
Hmm.
as soon as you do all the configuration setup of a variant configuration in ECC, when you want PPDS to actually come up with a planning, say the moment you create a sales order, the
Hmm.
classification, the screen opens up and it says it comes up with all the characteristics, right? So all these
Mm-hmm.
things happen in ECC, and the moment you finalize exactly what you want, you need to plan for that in PPDS. So, and that is the reason we have PDS. PDS
Okay.
supports, yeah, PDS
Okay.
supports variant configuration, but actually there is no configuration to support variant configuration in PPDS. It only supports your variant configuration setup in ECC and plans accordingly. For example, block planning, exactly like variant configuration only. Exactly
Okay.
like variant configuration. Well, that supports PPDS supports that. And when you see block planning in block planning session, you will get a fair understanding of
Okay.
uh, variant configuration.
Okay. And this projects, what our company is expecting is all S4 HANA projects. So we will not be using ECC. It will be advanced, they call it as advanced variant configuration or something in S4 HANA. So that is what it is.
See, now, see S4 HANA, yes, but in S4 HANA, you cannot create when I say S4 HANA planning, okay, S4 HANA planning part, you cannot create a sales order. To create a sales order, you still have to go to VA01 and start everything. So no matter how advanced it is, it has to begin from there. You need a material, it has to come from there. You need a class, it has
Agree,
to
agree, agree. Correct, correct, correct. No, no. What I'm saying is it is not a ECC and APO bus. What I'm
yeah,
saying is
okay,
it's S4,
good,
S4 HANA double. I'm sorry,
good.
I didn't specify it
Yeah.
more clearly. Okay.
So I'll
And
also
the
show, sure.
last question is when you talk about the config, I see more of the line items of S4. So you mean to say that if I get into a support project of ECC and APO, so whatever the configuration I learn during coming sessions, I can able to
Mhm.
do it in APO also. That's what you mean to say?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
exactly.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Yeah.
Exactly. So let me show you why I say that. While I'm opening the system, if anybody else has any question, please.
And currently, our internal system is S4 HANA 1809.
Yes, and let me show that. I'll open S4 HANA. See this, you can 1809. This is the
Okay.
current system.
Yeah, correct. Service pack 2. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So this is S4 and
Mm-hmm.
this is APO system. Okay. So what they've done is, I'm opening a APO system now. So here you have all other functions which S4 doesn't have. What it has is master data and production planning. So the moment I go to production planning, you see everything related to PPDS. Okay, so now when I go to S4 system, here you have logistics and all the ECC,
Uh-huh.
MM and all this. So then here you have advanced planning. In advanced planning, you have master data. So here in APO system, I'm swapping screens. In APO system, you have master data here, where you have master data for not just PPDS, for SNP, DP, for everything else, you have master data here. Whereas
Okay.
in this one, you have specific to planning only.
Okay.
Okay, so
PPDS.
product, yeah,
Yes.
specific to PPDS. And then when I go to production planning here, See, you see automated production planning, interactive production planning, manufacturing, exactly in APO, same thing. Automation, production planning, interactive. When I say both are same. What they've done, they've copied everything from PPDS and they've pasted everything in S4HANA. And what the work they've done is in SIF, that is a transaction data integration. Other than that, everything is same. Here in S4 HANA, I think that I go to master data. Okay, so product. So product is MAT1 transaction. In the same system, I can say MM01.
Right.
At the same time, I can call a product must also.
I use both because for EWM it's embedded EWM, so I use MM01 or SEMWM slash MAT1.
Yeah. So it's actually in one system. It's a ECC
Correct.
and APO put together. They have done this, and everything that you need to know other than what is covered, and that's the reason I've covered some functions which are not part of S4HANA yet. I'm showing those in APO system. So tomorrow it will be there so that you can understand. And anyway,
Right.
I'll give the recorded session also to everybody.
Okay.
So that you can always refer whenever you want, even after the course.
Okay. Thank you, Raj. And I mean, regarding this Fiori apps, is there any way I can learn? Because I can go through is there any Fiori apps library? Yes, on the portal I can download, but at the same time, is it possible to learn somewhere the usage of Fiori apps for PPDS respectively?
I think Sriram can answer that question. I have not worked, so I have no idea about this. Yeah, I don't know. You can check with Sriram if he has someone who can teach you, and I have no idea.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So anybody else?
Yeah, Raj. Hello.
Yeah, please.
I usually heard like this is S4 HANA and SAP HANA and just HANA. So what is the difference between like all are the same or is it just the people
It's just a
use different?
platform. It's just a platform they call S4 HANA. But in S4 HANA, you have for logistic modules also. For SD now they say for SD in S4, right? MM in HANA. It's just a platform where it's very faster. They have used a different operating system which is very fast. But here now S4 HANA, we are using S4 HANA for PPDS. See the system that I showed you, S4 HANA, that can be used for SD, for PP, for MM, for all other logistic modules also.
Okay.
The regular EC system, the platform is not HANA.
Okay.
Yeah, so then that is the only difference that I know.
Just to add to Raj, there is something as he was asking about just HANA. If it is SOH, it's called Suite on HANA. So your ECC can also sit on it. That means there the database is only HANA. The rest is the ECC. So if it is S4 HANA, that means your entire thing is on Suite on HANA. Suite for HANA. So your applications is also HANA, and then your database is also HANA. So yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Rajesh. All right. So anybody else?
Raj,
Feel free
regarding
to
the
ask.
product mix,
Oh, a good question. Product mix. See. I'll tell you. I don't know product mix because I've never worked. The functions that I teach is something that I've implemented. I'm very thorough. Mix is something that I have not used. I have not seen anywhere. Maybe you have, but in all the clients that I've worked for, I've never got an opportunity to learn that because I've not seen or no one has given me the requirement. So that's why that is not part of my syllabus.
uh, okay, no problem. And regarding there are some functionalities from APO now it is available in S4 HANA. Okay, so whether it is expected to whether SAP is going to move all the functionalities currently in standalone APO system to S4 HANA or
Yes, yeah, that's the goal. 2025.
yeah, okay,
That's the
okay,
goal. So you will not have API system at all. after 2025, and then that's the reason slowly things are getting migrated to. If you look at the previous version, even some of the functions now it's working, but then back then it was slow, it was not working properly, not every thing was migrated, so it's getting better and better. Yeah, like eventually you'll not have API system at all.
And SAP also comes out with a roadmap for each version. So what all the functionalities they're going to bring in, say, example, next is 1908 version on-premise. So in S4HANA, when you talk, you have two. One is for the on-premise and another one for the cloud. The cloud is every 3 months is a cycle. For on-premise is every yearly cycle. So SAP comes out with a PPT saying that what all the functionalities will be coming in the future versions.
Yeah. Do you have the document, Rajesh? I mean, where the
Some
fixes
documents, yes,
that?
I can share that.
Yeah, because in our previous batch we had one guy called Parminder who was actually learning from me, but he was also teaching HANA on other areas, logistics. So he had shared few documents with me. If I can trace it, I'll send it across.
Okay.
to everybody.
The example in my previous project was S4HANA multi-tenant. So that was the first, I can say, the EWM on a cloud. So they don't have RF transactions. So you can imagine EWM warehouse without RF transactions. But SAP said, when we went to SAP clearly said we don't have a roadmap. What we are going to give is just APIs. So you need to build the screens and connect using the API connectors. So that was one of the negative, which finally customer decided not to go with the S4HANA multi-cloud.
Okay, good to know that. All right, I'm actually not sharing my screen anymore, but if you have questions, I'm open. Even during the sessions, the first I connect 10-15 minutes early every day, during every Saturday, Sunday, so that whoever has questions can log in 10-15 minutes early, and so that we don't waste time. You
Raj,
get
one question,
assistant.
I don't know whether it can
Yeah,
be
sure.
done. Is it possible to shift 2 hours from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.? I mean, I'm just asking.
I think that is what it is now, 7 a.m. to 9. Oh, you mean to say 7 to shift to 9, is it? See,
9 to,
personally, for me, no problem. But the guys in US, we 7 o'clock is because of them. In every batch, for them, it's late in the night. 7 itself is late for them.
Rajesh, that
Keep
is
it
not
night.
possible. Time is fixed
Yeah,
because 7 in the sense
yeah,
it's 9:30 in EST.
correct.
okay,
That's the
fine,
only
no
reason.
problem. Okay,
But
sure.
hey, sorry guys, this is Ganpati. But can we take a quick vote because I am in Central? Do you have anybody from Eastern first of all? Because if somebody is specific, they
Yeah,
would.
we have central people is there, Eastern is there, Pacific is there, Ganpati.
Okay.
And we have Singapore is there in this batch.
So, yeah, that's the problem. Even I want to change many times, and because of this, if you always stick to 7 o'clock.
Oh, it's okay, it's okay. I mean, whatever the majority will go with that. That is not a problem. I just asked if there is option, yes. Be
That's
happy to
okay.
do. Okay, thank you, Raj. Thank you, Sriram.
So I think Sriram, I don't think there are any more questions, and share my email ID if they have any questions. I'm happy to answer, and I'll talk to you next week.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you,
Okay,
guys.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.